Hi and welcome everyone. This is a very special episode of Seek Sustainable Japan, and I have a very special group of guests in the first section. We are going to do 4 sections of 30 minutes with amazing guests that have already been on the show in one of the first 500. You guys can say you're in the
500.
top 500.
500.
It's a huge surprise. How did it happen? I don't know. I'm as surprised as everyone else. Thank you so
Very
much for
impressive.
joining, everybody. And thank you so much to my first section talking about business. You guys are all Tokyo experts and insiders doing amazing work. Thank you so much for joining. Yay!
Yay.
Thank you for
having
having
us. Yeah, we're privileged.
So, all of us were connected when Tove and I decided to do the Women Inspire event. We were all involved with that. So that was one of my big events since I started my own business. So it was great to have you guys in the first section. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. And can I get the first congratulations? Congratulations. What an effort. 500 episodes. That's crazy. That's so much hard work, so many people. And I know you doing all these kind of connections and bringing people together behind the scenes as well. So a big heartfelt thank you from the whole community, JJ, for everything you do. And how does it feel?
It feels unreal. Like how could I possibly have had 500 episodes? I don't believe it still.
Coffee?
But,
Years has it been?
lots of coffee.
How many years have you been doing it?
So basically, started with some on-site interviews with people from 2019, and it got me started thinking about it. And then I decided from 2020 to try to do the live show to get the audience more engaged, to keep it transparent in that way too, so people can ask questions. Speaking of which, if you are watching live, you can ask questions and make comments anytime. We would be happy to add you in.
But Joy, that's almost like over 100 a year. That is such an incredible accomplishment. That's
really
so Spartan. Spartan was 300, but you're 500. So good.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking back, there were some times during COVID, during the lockdown, I was doing talks almost every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
so that really racked it up. Yeah.
I was going to ask, so would you have got here without COVID? Is this a kind of a blessing of COVID?
Really? Definitely.
Mm.
Yeah. I never would have been at 500 now after only about 2 years of doing it without COVID. So that kind of relates to one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys. Have you Tokyo business people, have you noticed a shift since COVID in how people are working? Are they valuing more work-life balance, or are more people working from home? Are you seeing any changes?
Definitely.
Yeah, go first, Tove.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because at the beginning, I remember speaking to a friend who was working at Kao at the time, big Japanese organization. She was in the corporate culture sort of part of that. And she was saying, until COVID, there was this whole concept that it just wouldn't work. Working from home just couldn't possibly work in Japan. And then it happened very, very quickly. And everyone, because the company's values were so deeply embedded, and they said, look, in order to keep people safe and to work effectively, we need to do this. And she said it just took a couple of days and there was a complete turnaround and they went completely online. It was really impressive to see a lot of large companies actually manage that very, very well. And then it's been interesting to see what has happened since, and whether they've remained more flexible and open to it. I know some clients that we work with have started saying, no, come back to the office. And there's been a real pushback actually from employees who've said, well, no, that's not the most effective way to work. And we can be really effective outside the office and have a better work-life balance and get to see our kids and things like this. And I think it's shifted people's mindsets. And so a lot of the companies that we speak to are more open and more flexible now. And I think employees are beginning to demand it more and be more sort of vocal about what they want for that, which is, I think, a very encouraging thing.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on that. I agree with Tove. That's my impression as well. I haven't got any sort of data on it, but just anecdotally, there's the companies which are basically have gone back to pre-COVID, essentially, and probably not a lot has changed. And then there are others who just never, basically, you know, genie's out of the bottle, never going back.
Right.
It's actually better this way.
Yeah.
Caring for your other people in your household. Actually, you know, those couple of days a month where it's really, really hard to get to work, just you don't have to.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I think it's just opened up this whole other way of being, like a company or your relationship with your employees. So really good. But there's probably lots of companies falling in the middle where you know it's not completely free, but there's a kind of, I've heard a lot of the kind of like 2 days a week flex time, but 3 days a week kind of minimum. I don't know how how that's going, to be honest. It'd be interested to hear, but I do think that definitely was one of the blessings. That's a legacy of the COVID era. And I just to sort of to pick up on Tove's point about expectations of employees. I think this is a really interesting area that does come back to actually sustainability and company transitions, because what employees expect from their employer is definitely shifting, and they've got more agency now than probably ever before. And the Gen Z, because they're the smallest demographic, they've got the most agency and kind of like buying power as someone, or say, if they're selling their labor, it's the other way around. But, you know, they've got, you know, if they used to kind of stick it out at a big famous Japanese company, even if they didn't like it, or they would go and work for one. But now they're just, they're not. They can look at the reviews of what it's like to work there online, which are becoming transparent, right? They don't need to do it themselves. And if they don't like it, they'll leave. And so they're a new generation. I think actually, if you're looking for like stimulus to change decision making in Japanese companies, actually that younger group sort of basically saying, well, I'm not down for this.
Right.
It is one of the key ones. But what do you think, Ruth? You have loads of high level clients.
Yeah, so I'm involved with a whole bunch of companies, and I think that the easiest way to say it is that it's getting very real for Japan. So every time I would do speeches up until now, it was sort of like, oh, okay, that's what it's going to be like. But now when I go into any kind of speech situation, it's like, please tell us what to do right now. You know, like it's happening now. And I think that Japan, it's always said that Japan will often move due to pressure from the outside. And right now, basically, in order to hire good people, hire good Japanese kids out of schools, out of universities in Japan, you have to have the remote option. So people in the interviews, the young group in the interviews are asking, so how many times do I have to come into the office again? You know, and that's like a really big point. And then the other huge change that's happening is the international investors. Since the yen is cheaper, the yen is weaker and weaker and weaker, all these international investors from around the world are looking at the prime companies. And when they invest in these companies, you ready? They have the rules that they have to follow in their home country in order to invest in a Japanese company. So all the ESG stuff, all the D&I stuff, all the sustainable parts, those have now become criteria for these outside companies to invest in the big Japanese companies, which literally forces change at the board level. So I feel like, you know, just as concluding on my point is that Japan is in the middle of actual internationalization right now. We've been thinking about it. And I think, Joy, your ability to bring this whole community together, all of us internationals, really sort of like fundamentally changes something in this country. And I have one more point to say, but I'll wait until towards the end. So please, somebody else talk. Tove, you were nodding. Or Joy, please, we'd love to hear from you.
No, I love it. I love it. You guys have so much great insight in the business world. And I think Tokyo is where we're seeing changes first.
Maybe.
And where I am in Hiroshima or other smaller cities, we're going to see it after. Like all the big changes seem to happen there first.
Can I challenge that?
Yeah.
So I think you're right about a whole bunch of stuff. Like, so maybe in terms of employment practice and stuff, that internationalization effect, and let's say DEI or Jedi, that pressure that Ruth was talking about with the portfolio manager having basically to hit targets across their portfolio and looking at the HR practices as part of the, the S of the, I mean, that's definitely hitting those big multinational companies that are exposed to the international. But actually, in some ways, like there's so much money flowing through the big cities, obviously, all the economic stuff aside, there's still so much capital. And I feel like actually some of the times I've gone and visited places like Kagoshima in Kyushu, or smaller towns and provinces where actually, because of the declining population, the declining tax base, they're having to be more innovative.
Right, exactly. Yes.
And as actually, the kind of the exchange value of land and buildings and stuff like decays to zero, then it's just the use value and what you can do with it that takes over, and that actually creates way more freedom and repurposing of spaces, of buildings, using like basically your labor in different ways and sort of contributing to the community. So I in some ways think that you'll see more, let's say, rewiring of the social fabric. That's getting our company's sort of founding metaphor in there, but I think you might see more reweaving of the social fabric actually fundamentally in the regions where the rubber's hit the road on some of these really
it'll be like more obvious. I think that probably, Tove, you're going to say something about this, but last year we saw the highest number of international people coming to live in Japan than they've ever seen before. It was over 300,000 people in 1 year. And so there's talk, and these experts are thinking by 2030, 10% of the entire Japanese population will be non-Japanese. And a lot of this, like you said, is going to be seen very clearly in the local regions, because just very, clearly, if you have 10% of a very small population now non-Japanese, it's much more obvious, because all these Japanese companies all over the country need more people, and the visa requirements are changing, right? Isn't that happening, Tove?
Absolutely, it really is. And I know, particularly speaking to some of our big sort of hospitality clients, they've been sort of very frustrated with the sort of the difficulty of getting visas for people. They can bring in people from outside. One person I was speaking to, a GM of a large sort of hospitality, very well-known one in Japan a few weeks ago, was just saying that he, it's not that there are not non-Japanese people who are willing to come and work here and interested. It's at the moment what's sort of slowing things down is getting them visas. And he had a case where he had a chef, I think, waiting who was Indian but had been based in Singapore before, waiting for 8 months to get his visa. And he said, this is crazy, come on, we need these people, we need to be more open to that. And I think, I also agree what James is saying is it's not just in the big cities and the big organizations too, it's really at a local level impacting very, very hard, particularly when you've got elderly populations, right? And they really need care workers, they need manual, laborers. That's very much a sort of a younger person's remit. And if the Japanese, younger population is just not big enough, or not sort of looking to work in those areas and coming more into the urban sort of centers, then we need to look elsewhere and be open to that. And that's going to be a big shift, I think, in terms of structure and the way it needs to work in terms of policy level, but also just for people and their mindset and how are we integrating these people into communities. So it's a big shift.
Well, I think the next 20 years in Japan is going to be very difficult, because it's the first time. It's not just going to be the cute gaikokujin over there that you think is interesting. It's going to be somebody that you actually work with, that lives next to you. So it's when all the friction is going to start over the next 20 years. So people like us in this community can really sort of smoothen that transition, I think. Hopefully, even just a little bit would be great if we could do that. I don't know what it's like in Hiroshima, Joy, but in Tokyo, they now allow you to take the taxi driver test in 18 different languages.
Oh, wow.
That's
so
cool.
It used to be only Japanese.
That's
you had
good to hear.
have a certain level of Japanese to be a taxi driver. Now they're giving the actual official test in 18 different languages, because you have that little, what is it called, where you can translate with the little machine. So everybody can just
Google app.
Yeah. So you can just use that little machine now. So literally when you're riding around in a taxi or trying to stop a taxi in Tokyo now, a lot of the drivers are not Japanese anymore. That's a huge change.
One other thing I noticed when I was in Tokyo recently, James, you had this great event that Ruth and I went to, and you had some great speakers talking about gender as well. And the first thing I noticed when I got in a taxi was advertising showing women shachos, women heads of company, telling their staff what to do. And I thought, this is new, so in terms of gender equality and gender balance, you seeing the boards also talking not only about how to have more accessibility or inclusion for international workers, but more equal opportunities or promotion or equal pay for women. Is this something you guys are seeing coming up?
Equal pay will take a bit longer, I think, because that's not being forced out into the open yet. Once it's
but
forced,
at least they're having to declare.
Is it? Are they declaring? Okay, well, I don't know. I sit on 3 boards, and I don't really. I'm still questioning, because I think there's lots of different reasons, but one of the reasons is because the corporate environment isn't friendly to a woman who needs flexibility. So a woman who needs flexibility cannot work the same amount of hours as one of the guys. So obviously her pay is going to be lower. So we just have to break the current system and then rebuild it in terms of salary. That's what I think. But opportunity, I definitely think that's changing. I think more women, if they want to, they can be a manager, they can be a division chief. They could even be, CEO if they wanted to.
I think it's really sector specific as well, right? So if you you look in some areas like, sort of marketing, consumer goods,
right,
areas of tech, it's really, you're getting parity. But then there's this whole swathes of the economy, like construction or something, where it's just like, it might as well be 1950 still, right?
Right.
So I think it's very sector specific. And I think, that's also because of that labor squeeze we were talking about earlier. I think that's, they're going to wake up to the fact there's this amazing talent in half the population that just like are not like being attracted to their sector anymore. And
I'm thinking that basically salaries for everyone in Japan are too low. So we went through deflation for so long. When you look at salaries overseas, whether it's the C-suite, whether it's a regular worker, these people who have graduated from graduate school in Japan are getting a first month pay of like 260,000 yen as their base pay. And so I feel like we have to raise it for everybody. And then you can also kind of enforce equality there.
That was my pay when I was a jet in 1991.
Like that. Yes.
That was the standard pay. And it really hasn't changed.
No, it has not changed.
In 30 years. Tove, did you have a comment about gender?
Well, just to sort of echo what we've heard already. So I think we mentioned in our monthly live stream last month that I'd just been at the Moro Sadali event with BCCJ and sort of talking about this. Melanie Brock talking about her experience on various boards and what she was seeing. And definitely progress. We are seeing more. We've got to go beyond the 1 or 2 sort of token sort of women on the board, because one of the things that we know from organizational change is that you need a certain sort of critical mass, if you like, to make a difference. If it's just 1 or 2, it's very difficult to actually have a voice and speak up on there. And we're seeing a lot of really amazing people, but quite often the same names coming up on boards. Again, we need to broaden out that pool, but that takes time. You can't just sort of jump straight into a board position. It takes a lot of experience and preparation, so that we've got to start giving people opportunities. I think giving women more opportunities much earlier on to get involved in strategy level conversations and things to build up that sort of understanding and experience. So it would be good to see more of that, because at the moment there's a lot of excuses. Oh, well, there's just not enough women sort of to sit on the boards or to be senior leaders. But yeah, I mean, yes, you can hire in sort of mid-career from other industries, other sectors, but we also companies need to be looking in their own pipeline and saying, are we giving people the opportunities to go and get the experience and the skills that they need to develop that and allow flexibility? So yeah, it's moving in the right direction, but I think there's an awful lot more progress to be made.
Well, Japan's still like what 100? I think we slipped 163 or something in the ranking for gender equality.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more
Shocking.
work to be done,
Really
but
shocking.
yeah, I think. I mean,
and yet number of graduates are pretty much equal, or even slightly more.
Can I just throw one in there? Maybe this is a bit of a question for you guys. So we're quite involved with the B-Corp movement here. It's been, I'm not sure how familiar, this audience is with the B-Corp movement, but I think it has a lot of potential in Japan, because I think ESG is, it's, for one, it's framed through investment. It's basically a risk assessment framing.
Yeah.
And it's also, it has got quite a lot of sort of assumptions about, what a society should look like that are baked into it. And those are quite European, and, kind of what you might say is, progressive from their terms, and not necessarily inclusive. And I think one of the, you hear a lot of moaning and whinging, which Tove was mentioning, that I'm not saying that's that they're right. But I think the B Corp assessment framework is actually more flexible, and it's a way for companies to tell their own story. You can't get away from sort of like statistics, like, basically how, what share of income is going to female employees versus, and, things like that. So it's, but it's basically something I think Japanese companies could embrace more and more. And we had a few months ago the official launch of the sort of B Market Builder, which is a kind of sponsored by the whole network. Tori-san is leading that, and she's an amazing advocate for that community and the sort of transitional potential it has. So I wonder what you guys think. Is it something that you can see catching on in Japan?
I would hope so. Yeah.
You hope so.
Have you heard of it, Ruth?
No, I'm so sorry. I don't think
that's fine. It's becoming more common in Japan, but I think internationally it's a bit more well known. It's like a basic foundational strategy and consulting to get you to a decent level to think about being a sustainable business and how you could be better. And as long as you hit the certain standard, you can be listed as a B Corp, right?
Yeah, you got to get above
right?
You got to get above 80 to get the listing. And you've got famous. I think the biggest in Japan is Danone, the French company. Patagonia would be another really famous one. So yeah, it's.
But a lot more travel companies now are being listed with B Corp. I've noticed travel platforms in Japan, tour companies. So that's good to see. Yeah.
So, Joy, can we ask you some questions?
Yes. I don't want to run out of time before you get a chance to plug your event, James.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to just mention your big event coming up?
Do you want to start the story off with Carol and the way that you supported her initiative first?
Yeah. Okay. So I interviewed her as well, thanks to Tove. And Tove, you and James met with her and helped her strategize. And now you've got an event coming up with her, right?
Cool. Yeah, okay. So Carol Fuchs. Oh, yep. Good. Do you want me to go? So Carol Fuchs is climate activist and very knowledgeable on climate scientist. She's based at the British Embassy in Japan, working on climate science there. She's also a sort of world-class athlete who's climbed Everest without supplementary oxygen. Wow. And so she spends all her free time out running in the mountains. And she's been very conscious over the decades that she's been doing this, of noticing the rate of change, the rate of ice melt in the mountains, which is much faster than it is in other ecosystems, and the impact of that. So people sort of look at it and go, well, okay, well, it's a mountain that very few people actually go to, and really what's the big deal here? But Carol's really good at explaining how this connects to our lives, and the fact that we rely on this ecosystem, that water from there, the meltwater, feeds the sort of agriculture in that area and industry that we rely on for a lot of the goods that we use. So she's got this amazing project, this sort of mountain climate run. Is it, James, that she's calling it?
Yeah. So she's running the Himalayan Trail, which is a 1,500-kilometer trail. She doesn't go over the peaks, but goes bloody high.
Wow!
And she's just amazing and phenomenal.
Yes.
And so she's got her own fundraising platform that's just launched, basically to fund her trail run, so that she can document it and those changes which are happening in what can be called the third pole, because after the North and South Pole, the Himalayas is effectively the third pole. It's the next fastest place that, like, climate change is really having an accelerated and dramatic impact on lives, traditions, cultures, and ways of life. So one of the ways that we're helping sort of bring people who live in Tokyo and maybe not connecting their lifestyles to those impacts, and maybe not have such a clear idea of how they could make some simple changes and choices in their life that would start moving things in a better direction. We're hosting this event called MELA. So MELA is in the Indian subcontinent. It refers to a kind of bazaar or kind of cultural festival, and we basically are holding one of those and bringing together other people connected to the Himalayan culture. So there's our neighbors actually in Nakameguro, Adi and Chiaba. So amazing restaurant and Himalayan tea shop, best chai in the world. And now they have a tea brand. Sunchai Peanut Butter, Abode of Snow, the fashion brand, whose co-founder is from Tibet. Yeti Roastery, which is an amazing coffee brand that's grown in the Himalayan foothills. And so we're basically putting that on next Saturday, the 6th of July. So come on down, sign up, come on down to Nakameguro. It's going to be really fun. You can try some stuff out. So thanks for getting the plug in. And please, I think the link to Carol's platform is on that PeerTix link as well. So do check her out and support her, because she's an amazing woman on an incredibly important mission.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so excited for all the collaborative work that all of you guys are doing. So much of what you all are doing is connected to so many other businesses and so many other people who are doing great things. That's the label or the slogan for the show, Sustainable Japan, right? Good people doing great things. And I think it extends far beyond just the people I have on my show. I've heard so many great stories about connections elsewhere, and I feel happy to be a little bit of a part of that. So
yeah, you kicked it. You and Tove kicked it all off with the Women to Inspire Sustainable Japan 2 years ago, right? Which it's made so many friends and meaningful connections there. So yeah, just being inspired by you and the all the inspirational content and people that you bring on your show. Congratulations again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we got 2 more minutes. Ruth, Tove, and James were talking about an event they're excited about. Anything coming up for you?
Not in terms of events, lots of client work going on, so sort of projects within that. But I want to go back to James's point about questions for you, actually.
Okay. We got 2 minutes. So, yeah.
James, you had a really good question. What was it?
Yeah, what was it? Most of all the 499 that you've done today, which show was the most, insert adjective, Ruth?
Impactful.
Oh, good one.
Oh, impactful for me, or I've heard from other people?
Well, yeah. Either one is fine.
Either one? Oh, I think all of you guys, all of the talks with you guys has definitely been my favorite. And
such a political answer.
I will say the same thing to the next group, I'm afraid. That's too difficult. I can't choose. No, seriously. Okay. Every talk I've done, I've gotten so much out of it. And then some talks I'm like, oh no, I didn't have a chance to talk about this, or I didn't have a chance to talk about that. Oh no, like I try to prep as much as I can. But then people will say, oh, wow, I really got a lot out of that. Or, and so I feel like even if I get out what I can or introduce what I can about them, and you can't talk about everything, but maybe sometimes that's enough, just trying to keep it positive and promote the good work other people are doing.
Okay,
just giving them a voice.
Just to tag on that real quickly, the thing that I wanted to plug is that Jarman International just acquired deepjapan.org. So we're going to have our own media. So I hope that this can also become a good platform for all the people here and all the interesting things you're doing in an article sort of way. So that'll come out. We're rebranding and it should come out in October. So
that's awesome.
Congrats. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, great, Ruth. Thank you, guys. That's the 30 minutes. I got another group waiting in the waiting room. So I got to say goodbye, and we'll try to do it again soon. I think it would be great to have an hour long with all of you guys.
Nice seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Enjoy the rest of it.
Enjoy.
Good luck, Joy. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Bye. Congrats.
All right. So now we have our next group coming in. This is so exciting and so difficult and so challenging. And I'm so excited to welcome in our next group. We are talking about farming. We have 4 fabulous guests. Thank you for coming in, you guys. It's great to see you all. Can you all see and hear everything okay?
Yay.
Yay.
Yep.
So we're talking about fabulous farming. Yeah? Now,
fabulous.
I've had all of you guys on the show at different times talking about your own thing. Why don't you introduce what you're kind of excited about? What's going on with you now? What are you growing? Let's start with Heather. Heather, you're first.
Okay. I have decided to try and I made some decisions about not trying to grow everything, because I always, in spring, like actually February, I'm over snowed, I've got nothing to do, I'm housebound, and I make amazing plans. Okay, I'm going to flip this bed every 6 weeks, I'm going to grow this, and then this, and then this, and it works for like 2 weeks. Then I wear myself out. And so I've decided that it's not sustainable if I can't sustain it. So this year, I've been like, what do I enjoy growing? What grows well where I am? And then, what do people like that I grow? So I'm really focusing in on rhubarb, butternut pumpkins, wheat, rice, and Roma tomatoes for people who like to make their own tomato sauce. And it's been a bit, I still grow the rest of the vegetables. I grow all of our vegetables. So I'm still growing, but I'm not growing heaps. And I've got lovely people saying, hey, Heather, I haven't seen your veggie boxes. And I've just been, I can't, I'm one person. And I find veggie boxes really stressful because I don't deliver them, because mine go by a post. It always means I can't put in lettuce. I can't put in things that don't travel well. And I feel like when I first started doing it, there weren't a lot of people doing it. So I felt like I was really providing something that there was a gap in the market. And now I see amazing people doing it in all different places in Japan and producing great boxes. And I'm just like, everyone has their thing that they can do and without feeling stressed. And that's not mine. So, but I think it was a big, like, pulling back from something is something I find really difficult. Like, I don't know whether it's like admitting failure or, I don't know. I find that very difficult, but I was like, so yeah, sorry, that was kind of a long answer, but yeah, for me, it's been, using my head and not my heart to make decisions.
I think that's really important. And I think Chuck, Thomas, now you guys can all identify with how Heather's feeling. Chuck, how about you? What are you growing now? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I was gone for 3 months. I was in Hokkaido, just weird twist of fate. And I had volunteers caring for my farms, and they did a fabulous job. My heartfelt thanks to you all. And I've got some 125 tomato plants, 11 heirloom varieties. And I totally hear you, Heather. What the heck was I thinking? My God, I'm not an amateur. I'm a farm, but oh yeah, I'm just killing myself trying to.
You must spend a week every week tying up the new shoots.
Cutting the suckers, tying up the shoots. Yeah, but anyway, what I'm excited about is, like you're growing the traditional butternuts. I have honey nuts this year, which are the smaller variety. I'm very excited about that. And yeah, just everybody else, what's your favorite thing to grow? What do you like best? I don't have a favorite. People ask me today, and I was like, I just love it all. But I do love the winter squash because they keep so long. I've still got butternut on the shelf from last year, so that's a real winner. But for me, the thing I'm most excited about is my new program at the farm, which I don't have to talk about right now because maybe we're talking about growing things and everything, but I want to hear what everybody else has to say. So I'm just going to pass the mic.
Yeah, connecting with events and education, we'll dive in a few other minutes. Thanks.
No worries.
Chang.
No worries.
Thomas, you want to go next?
Yeah. My name's Thomas Klepper for those listening at home, and it's good to be with you all. This year, we're growing probably 20, 30 varieties right now, like mainly cucumbers, beans, pumpkin, tomatoes, and then I'm mostly selling through the like a subscription service at this point, and a little bit online with Tapichoku now. But most of my customers, I would say, are direct, in here on the island, so local, which is really great. We've been running like a CSA through that. So today we harvested for that. We did cucumbers and peppers and onions and potatoes and everything in the box for them. And then we grow a lot of herbs on the farm too. And the way that I've done it now is, through natural farming. So I do have certain things that just a lot of volunteer egoma and shiso that just pops up, and new blends of things that, I feel like only exist here in Makaishima or on this farm. Cherry tomatoes, another good volunteer that we've got, and I've had since I've had the farm. So we pulled a lot of those out back in May and potted them up and planted them up. So that's always a nice surprise. Saves a little bit of time and work and effort, but we're staying busy though. It's getting hot.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk to all of you about how you're changing what you're growing because of climate change or the weather changes. That'll be my next question. Let's get Now in here. Now, tell us what you're growing at the moment. How's it going?
Hi, my name is Nao. I'm running the Iniabi Farm in Hiroshima. Right now, we just harvested the wheat for flowers. We increased the range for the wheat this year, and I'm so excited to use that flowers for my bread. Actually, I went to San Francisco to learn about how to bake a sourdough bread, and I'm trying to make a good bread. Yeah, and we have 20 more kinds of veggies in my farm, and we are trying to sell the vegetables well, because in that last 4 years for us, it was difficult time that we didn't get enough veggies to make the veggie box or the stuff to give to the restaurant was like that. So we are trying to we are focusing on the sell the product this year. Yeah, thank you. And we started officially the Airbnb this year, and you will welcoming guests to help us or just learn how the natural farming is going on in our farm. Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Wow, that's great. You all are in different. Well, Thomas and now you're both in Hiroshima, but different areas, kind of different kind of ecological areas too, mountains or island. Heather's in Nagano, and Chuck, you're doing Shiga Kyoto, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I know all of you are doing quite different things, but have you been adjusting like how you're farming because of climate change? Have you noticed less water, more heat, those kind of things? Any strategies that are working?
Well, one thing that I think is probably challenging most of us is insects having a real surge in populations because they wake up early, there's more generations born, and suddenly exponential numbers of this pest arrive. And, we're organic, so we've just got to hand pick and manage and go through losses. So I don't know any real solutions to that except waiting for the things that eat those insects. Or I just ordered some Castile soap for the stink bugs. They're just going insane this year.
This year they're pretty incredible. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that wasn't.
Heather's got a great story about training her kids to pick off bugs and squish them, and getting in trouble when they were at nursery school because they were naturally doing that. They weren't supposed to or something, right?
The teacher was like, "Look, everyone, it's a little caterpillar," and my 3-year-old went, "I got it." And the teacher thought she was this hideously violent child.
She just got an organic farmer for her mom.
They used to have their little children's sand bucket, and that was their job, just to walk down the rows and pick off the green caterpillars for me. So, but I'm really interested to hear from now. I find wheat is getting more challenging because I can't get the harvest before the rainy season. I find that I can't predict the beginning of the rainy season as easily as I used to be able to. And 2 years ago, we almost lost our wheat to, I don't know, it's called black tip in English. I don't know what it's called in Japanese, but it was like basically a mold. So I'm wondering, like, have you changed any of the way that you plant or grow wheat because of the unpredictable rainy season?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And we are, in trouble with the harvesting the wheat. And only for this year, the rainy season was delayed. So we were lucky to have all with a dried condition. But last year it was so difficult, and we didn't make it last year. So this year we tried to plant or seed so early, and we predicted the days for the harvest, and we said that in the beginning of the June, so it worked. But we didn't change the raining season, so it's under under our discussion, how it. And it was so lucky this year because we had time to how do you say, the peel off the skin with the
to thresh it.
To before the rainy season. So we all packed every wheat in a paper bag, and we already put inside of the plastic bag and get the air away out of the plastic bag, and we are waiting for the rainy season ends. And after that, we have to make it to flowers, the meal.
Yeah, mine is still hanging in the field. I don't think it's drying.
It's so difficult. Yeah.
I was wondering about the vegetable farmers too. Because I'm one person, I've always managed to dry farm in the spring. Like, I really haven't watered. I mean, when I transplant things, I water, but there's always been enough rain in the spring that I didn't have to water any of my seedlings. And this year, like, even my really big established rhubarb was just not handling the early hot temperatures. So I'm wondering if you guys have had that problem, or if you found a way around. Like, do you just water all year, or how do you deal with a hot early spring?
I think, Thomas, you were having issues with watering in the hot season, right? Last year?
Yeah. I mean, on the top part of the farm, because we're on what was a citrus orchard at one point, and unless I transplanted, I'll water there. We've got several like large water tanks that we keep, but I actually don't do a whole lot of watering, especially these days. The last few weeks, we've gotten a really good. I really think this year, like March, April, and May, were really, really wet and really rainy. But then I've also made the decision to hold off on the CSA in August, because in Mukaishima, or in this part of Japan, we don't get a single day of rain after the rainy season for about 2 months. So August and September, it won't rain at all. So then I'm trying to do other crops like roselle, or like rose hips, this kind of, and okra, sweet potatoes, these kind of things that I think can be pretty heat resistant and tolerant. Kushinsai is another like Asian green that's also really heat tolerant. So, and then what I've done now in the last, during that August, September time is just give the soil a bit of a rest, maybe plant a cover crop, or I've been using these really large tarps now, and I'm tarping a lot of my beds and just, letting it rest in August and September. And that's been actually really, since we can grow year round in Makaishima, we might as well take a little bit of a break,
I think that's a blessing and a curse, Heather.
Yeah.
We do have winters off.
Yeah, I hear that's it.
Chuck, you're using the tarps to keep the watering needs down as well, aren't you? And weeds.
I do. But also, I'm here in Keihoku, Kyoto. It's great. They have the canal system. The mini canals next to the roads that filter water from the mountain spring as well as from the local river. And I can flood my field almost any time of year, which is great. Absolutely fabulous. But just like everybody here, I'm sure you compost, you throw a lot of organic matter in your soil so it holds water. I don't cover my walkways anymore. I let the weeds grow there. That holds a lot of water in that environment. And the plants find a way, the strong plants, they just put those roots down farther and farther, and they do pretty well. Yeah.
I know. Talking about the cover, when I visited you, Heather, you were lamenting about the plastic and how it gets into everything. And then the thicker plastic, I think, Thomas, you were trying something thicker that you can use longer. Now, are you using kind of cover to keep the water and weeds down?
We are in trouble with that kind of things, and we are now cover the ground with the cut weed. How do you say?
Chop and drop.
Yeah, we didn't use the plastic ones, but just we have tons of weeds around the field. So we just cut them and chop them into it.
Do you use your wheat straw as well?
Yeah. Yes. Because that's why we are growing the wheat for the farm. Yeah, not only for the flowers, but we are using floats to the farms very much.
I think the wheat straw has been amazing in that it can be like August, bone dry, hot. And I stick my finger through because every year we just add another layer. I never remove it. And it's like the most beautiful black soil because it just breaks down year on year. And the temperature difference is incredible. But I was like trying to work out how could I get enough wheat straw to cover all the vegetables and stop using plastic. And the secret is I would have to stop growing vegetables so I could grow enough wheat straw, but then I wouldn't have any vegetables. And I was like, I could take on another field. No, I cannot take on another field. But I do love the full cycle of you get the flower and then you get the green crop, what do you call it? Because I rotate where I grow the wheat. So you get the green crop to give it a rest. And then you get the wheat straw. It's just a beautiful thing to grow, except for the wet season.
Now, let's talk a little bit about getting diverse income sources. So now you mentioned you have a guest house. Chuck, I know you and Thomas are both also educators. Heather as well, also teaching as well as, I don't know if that helps a little bit. People always ask, is it possible to make a living as a full-time farmer? Has anyone found it possible, or most of you are kind of getting income from different sources as well? Is that right? Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm very risk averse, and one bad season could really I don't play lotto. I don't even ride roller coasters. So I in fact in my neighborhood of I don't know, I must know 30 or 40 farmers. I only know one family that are everyone in the family does not have an outside of farming job. So at least one person in every family has a salaried job. And I just feel especially with unpredictable seasons and not being able to rely on it, for me personally, where I live, not being able to farm in winter, if we have a late frost and I lose all my spring crops, I can't just like not pay my bills until I can replant. So yeah, personally, it used to be a goal when I first started. It was, you know, I was like, you're not a real farmer if you have a side job. But even other than financially, I farm by myself. The voices in my head. I need to like I like the social aspect of leaving the field and going and talking. And I mean, I love teaching. I don't teach because I have to. I teach because I love it. So yeah. So for me, it's not a goal. But even if I did want to, I would hope my husband stayed as a salaried employee. I don't think it's too risky. I feel it's too risky in this area for what we farm.
But I think now, Chuck and Thomas, all of you guys are using the farm as a way to bring in people and teach about what you're doing and educate as well, right? And hopefully that brings in a little bit of income as well, like farm tours, farm seminars, that kind of thing, right? Heather, are you doing that as well?
You may have noticed when you came here, I get off on tangents and I just go for way too long. So the idea of having to do like a half-hour tour, we wouldn't have left bed one. I've had people who've come to visit and I've showed them around, but I would need to do a lot of work and really like have a script and have a timekeeper. And I just don't think it's something I'm suited to. People would be going, we were there for an hour and all she talked about was beetroot. Like we wanted to see stuff.
And it's hard to get stuff done too, right? You got to be organized. Yeah. Chuck, you have a great event program happening. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. Well, I just decided that I took the year like 2021 to really just farm. Okay, I'm a farmer now. No other side jobs. And no, my income was not there. And I was just tossing and turning about it. What should I do? And I just said, well, I've been a teacher for 20 something years. I've been a farmer for 10 or 12 years. Let's put these together and make an English program on the farm. Have families come out on the weekends and the holidays, bring their kids, and we have a farm experience with nature, the river, food, the environment. We do fun games as well. We have duck races down the little water canals and just get everybody out there and doing and playing and using English in a real way. And at the same time, giving people the opportunity to experience what it's like on a farm, how to be sustainable, kids pulling a carrot out of the ground, washing it and eating it right away. And parents just being like, you don't like carrots, you know, and that sort of thing. It just suddenly expanded everything I wanted to, is education, sustainability, food, environment, community, and education. And I just love kids. It's just they're my favorite group of people in the world. So
that's awesome. And now you often do seminars and invite people to the farm with your partner too, right?
Yes, we are doing the class for the children and also the adults who wants to start the farming by themselves. It's not have to be there like to become a farmer, real farmer, or just started in their small gardens or small planters. And yeah, we just finished our seminar in this morning and in this afternoon. We are doing the farmers class in our farm, the main farm, but also in the Hiroshima city central, near the central, for the people who live in the city central, to easy to come and easy to learn, easy to touch the natural farming. Yeah, it's helpful. Sometimes the participants are helping us and volunteering our work, so it's very helpful. And we are more happy to make the community and share the value of this kind of organic farming. So we are having fun doing that.
That's awesome. Now, Thomas, you might be the only farmer using animals. And you also bring people onto the farm and talk about taking care of animals, integrating farming with animals as well. You have any interesting projects or events you're doing this year?
Well, this year we've, I think through mutual connection with Wendy, she's recently sent us the spinning machine, so we can actually spin our wool. And we've been processing wool every year, cutting it, in April, May. So we've often hosted workshops for that, and had kids out, had groups out to come and do that with our sheep, and that's been really great. And I look forward to using that, I think, here into the future. But one of the other things with wool is that we can use it in the farm as well. I know that the kamikirimushi, there's a bug that has a lot of damage on trees, especially figs and citrus, and we're using that as a mulch around the citrus as well. So that's something, I think the oil on it, the natural lanolin on the wool, actually can maybe work to suppress maybe the bugs. So we're trying that. But there's always, but right now, I think going into July, August, it's just kind of hanging on or holding on, as it heats up. So that's we'll see how we get into fall though.
And you've got animals that eat up your weeds and things,
and
process it into manure. That's another
we're moving
way,
the sheep. Just moved them to a new space yesterday, and then renting some other abandoned farmlands around my house now. So we'll move the sheep into the next paddock, and we keep them rotating around, which is really great, because with all this rain that we're getting and as hot as it gets, the weeds are definitely taking off too. So having the sheep there really makes a big difference.
Now, all of you guys are so inspiring, and you inspire other people to try even growing some of their own veggies at home. What you're doing is so important. Do you feel like you can keep going for the next 5 years or so? And do you see other people taking up farming as well? Are you seeing a trend in the right direction? Because we've had such a decline in farming in Japan for so long, right? Any hope out there?
Hearing about Now's program to teach people farming, I think that's very inspiring. And I know of a guy who's doing it here in Kyoto. And I think those are very telling, that there are people out there putting the pieces together and making it work to be sustainable, and to give it back and hand it over to the next generation. And just, again, allowing people access. There are a lot of people want to come out to the farms, as I'm sure everybody here can attest.
I know, Heather, you were told you're crazy for trying organic farming from the other farmers, but it sounds like you're winning some people over when I visited, you said, right?
Yeah. And I think I would kind of split it in two. I think people growing their own vegetables, I really think that's increasing. And I'm one of those people who every time I'm driving, I promise I look at the road as well, but I always look at people's yards. And I rarely see a house that doesn't have at least like a cucumber, an eggplant, and a tomato. And I love that about Japan. I love how it's not considered something that only professionals or really green thumb people do. Like, people just give it a go. But on the other hand, I think like larger scale, or like, commercial farming, I think the average age of farmers like just keeps going up, and I don't see a lot of younger generations taking over. I really don't. I see they just keep like the older generation just keep working and keep working. And I think more programs to get younger people to come in. I see them around, and one area is like the organic, or at least low chemical, or like they're really trying to push that. And a lot of younger farmers seem to be interested in that. But what is a little worrying for me is I'm seeing like third sector companies that are very much backed by the different levels of government, buying up farmland and like mass production of rice, mass production of soba, and taking over the apple trees. And I don't know, maybe I'm just old fashioned and romantic, but I feel like owner operators care more about the land, and they care more about an individual field and the health of it. And I feel like it's maybe, like I said, it's only in the first couple of years of this, me seeing this, but it must be, I would say, a quarter of the fields in my neighborhood are now farmed in buckwheat, in soba, by a company. And they've got a little sign, like, if you see a problem, call this number. And one time, one of their fields was completely flooded because the next door neighbor's rice paddy had, and so I did the right thing. I called the number and I said hi, and they were like, And I said, look, this is the field number and this is the issue. And I read your little sign. Like, is it causing a hassle to anyone? And I said, no, but like your sober's underwater. Okay, thanks for telling us. And no one came. So to me, they're not caring about growing or like the health of it. So I guess to me, I was kind of like, oh, these are my new neighbors. So I hope we can encourage and inspire enough younger people to take over like individual farms, and we don't get more and more to factory farming, because I think we could look at other countries' examples and see that perhaps that's not a road we want to go down.
Yeah. Now, Thomas, in your areas, are you seeing a bit of progress? People getting interested in farming or supporting farmers more?
Yeah, no, Namichi, several people who are running their own like small businesses, curry shops, have come by multiple times throughout the year, or really in the spring. And I do a lot of seed saving, so everybody comes by and asks, what seeds do you have right now? And I'm happy to give all of these seeds away that we've been collecting on the farm, and just giving them tips and ideas, and they're getting started, but they're just like us on the sales side too. They're struggling with kamemushi, the pests and things too, and we can kind of exchange and trade tips and ideas of what maybe we can do. I got out the Makita vacuum the other day to take the it worked out all right. And then I saw my friend's Instagram the next day, and he was doing the same thing.
Oh wow! Now, how about in your area? We just have another minute, and then we got to change. Yeah.
In our area, I feel more like people are moving into this area and starting the small farm, which is very good, and I'm inspired from them. Most of them are trying to do that by organic way, so I'm so glad to have that community in my area. And one more thing is I have many university students who come to my home and helping us, and I feel more and more students are interested in becoming a farmer in the future, because of they started to think about the sustainability or small businesses, and more of them are trying to be a half farmer and half something, so which is so nice, and I'm always inspired from them, and I'm encouraged by them. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, that's a great place to end it, and thank you guys so much for joining. I want to do a whole hour segment with you guys sometime so we can really dive more deeply into all of these issues, but thank you so much for joining this time. I really appreciate you.
Congratulations, Joy. 500.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yay. Let's keep going. 500 more, right?
Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So we have our next group coming in. We have the Kyoto Creatives coming in. Hey, Felicity, how are you doing?
Hey, Joy, how are you?
Robert and Emily, fantastic. Let's see if we can get everybody in a frame. Hey, great to connect with you guys. Yay, Kyoto in the house.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Felicity. Haven't met you before, so I'm happy to see you.
You guys have not met before.
Nope.
Congratulations, Joy. I know they just said it, but 500 is amazing.
Thank you so much. Now you guys are all based in Kyoto doing very different things. But I've loved talking to all of you, and I think you all inspire us all. Now everybody's kind of focused on Kyoto for many things. Have you noticed since over tourism, are you seeing a big change in Kyoto these days? It's in the news all the time, all the negative stuff, right? But how do you feel as Kyoto locals?
I think that half of Kyoto is very full and half of Kyoto is very empty. When I went through Kyoto Station today, I felt the pressure of all the people, and it was quite stressful. I really don't like going to Kyoto Station that often. But then there are parts of Kyoto that even during the crazy, crazy time around April, Sakura season, nobody goes. So I think it's finding those off the beaten track spots that still exist, even in Kyoto, that you can really enjoy the city as it's meant to be enjoyed.
I think so too. Robert, I love your Instagram updates. You always give us an update on the Philosopher's Path, which is right in front of your gallery. How is it in your neck of the woods in Kyoto? Are you seeing things manageable? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. We're in an area where there's no trains or subways. We're on a patch of the Philosopher's Path where the buses and taxis don't stop. That's only 50, 60 meters down the road. That's where it gets rather crowded. So if I ride my bicycle or take a walk, I'll find more people walking down there. But, I don't really go downtown. But like Felicity just said, we were in the station the other day and I was down in downtown last night to see a great concert at Urban Guild, one of the great live house places. A gentleman named Christopher Fryman took together 2 years to put together called Zen Ensemble, and they just released an album called Garden of Time. A great musician in Kyoto. But like Felicity said, yeah, there's lots of crazy places just inundated with foreigners. Obviously, I don't go that. I live a pretty simple life, so I don't get out that much to those places. But our area here in the Ginkakuji area is quaint, quiet. A lot of the time, it gets really crowded during Sakura and Momiji season, Koyo. But otherwise, you can stroll along the Philosopher's Path at certain times of the day, only see a few people, and just be in awe and wonder. And I got to say, lucky me, 3 women in the room, just me as a guy. Look, I'm like, it's nice to see Emily. I haven't seen you for a while, and Felicity,
No, it's been too long.
for the film, haven't seen you for a while either. So, and the people that come to my gallery know about it, and it's kind of a destination. So, we're just very grateful to share, the culture with people in my specific field. And try to bring a little beauty and joy and peace into people's daily lives.
Yeah. And I just visited Kyoto City recently, and I love walking all the back streets, and I'm always impressed by all these amazing gems, these cultural gems that don't exist anywhere else in Japan. It's still alive in Kyoto. Now, Emily, you're in rural Kyoto, so I imagine you're not seeing an over-tourism problem like the city might be seeing, right?
Not at all. We have a little, local roadside station, and that's inundated every weekend. Saturday, Sunday, it's crazy, and we also have 2 main roads that go into the city, and one of them is like a one-laner. So, when I commute into the city for work, it's like at 6:30 in the morning, and there's no one there, and everybody else is also commuting, and so we know where to pull over for one another. But on the weekends, it's madness. It's mostly Japanese people. It's madness. Occasionally we do get very interesting hordes of foreign drivers. They were driving classic cars one weekend, and I meant to look up like what's going on, and I missed it. But there's some interesting activity that you see since you're in the countryside. That's certainly Kyoto specific, but
Is that
yeah,
is that a Michi no Eki? Is that what they call it?
Michi no Eki. Yeah, woody. We are woody.
But isn't it great when you have all these subcultures in Japan that you suddenly stumble upon like a classic car convention or something in the middle of rural Kyoto? That's really some of the things I love about Japan. Now I want to ask you guys about things you're excited about with what you're doing these days. Felicity, you're just about to launch a new film, is that right?
Yeah, so my documentary, which is called We Exist in English and Watashi Tachi no Ibasho in Japanese, is coming out on July 13th. And the topic is LGBTQI plus A plus visibility in Japan. And the goal of myself and my collaborator, Tiffany, was to share stories, to be a positive platform for storytelling. And we wanted to leave Tokyo, leave Kyoto, get out of the cities and go into rural parts of Japan. So the first episode of what we hope will become a documentary series is split between Tokyo and Matsuyama in Ehime Prefecture. And it is, I hope, very insightful. I learned a lot making it, especially talking with members of the LGBTQIA+ community in Japan who you kind of on the forefront. So we interviewed the first transgender city councillor in Shikoku, Watanabe Hiroyuki, and her story, where she was in the nightlife for 30 years and she was a bar owner, and then COVID happened and that kind of propelled her into politics, and then she became the representative of LGBT issues in her city, because Matsuyama still doesn't have the partnership program, which 75% of Japan now has the partnership program, where people can at least have some certificate that says they're a couple. So lots of topics like that. We talked to people all throughout the community, people on the street, and hopefully through this documentary, we'll share some stories and share a little bit of awareness.
That's great. Thank you, Felicity.
Fantastic.
You're always doing such great projects, and the visual arts are so important for spreading the message, right? Robert, did you want to say something?
No, I just said fantastic, Felicity.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it with people. People are
Thanks
people.
so much.
Love is love, and nobody should deny love, whatever
Right.
shape or form it comes in.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Robert, you are always giving us beautiful updates on your Instagram channel about your latest works. Anything happening now in your gallery you're excited about?
All the time. I'm in constant awe. I mean, I got a Jomon pot the other day. I mean, seriously, like I'm holding a piece made 3,000 years ago, which is at the end of the Jomon period. If you want, I'll go get it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, go get it. We want to see it.
Go get it. Okay.
Yes, get it.
Go get it.
That's amazing.
Can I quickly share a memory of Robert while he's getting his
Of
pot?
course you can. Yes.
So we did a little documentary about Robert, actually, a little intro to him, and we went to his gallery, and we did a section where he was blindfolded, and we put a sake cup in his hand, and he could tell just from the tips of his fingers who made it, where it had come from, which gallery. So the passion is deep and true and real.
Eyes on your fingertips.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean,
that's a great party trick.
So this is a Jomon pot.
Wow.
And it's very light. Of course, it was meant for storing something, probably seeds of this form. It has the rope pattern on it. It's kind of more of a traditional form, not the wild, crazy, fire flame pieces. The lip has a little, battle scar damage, but who wouldn't at 3,000 years old?
Yeah.
And it's so precious to hold something like this and imagine the mystery and where it came from. And it came from it came from Al Morty. That's what the box said. But more so of not where it came from, but who held it, that mystery of where it came from. And, to be in awe of what beauty humanity has the potential of creating and sharing throughout the centuries is something that I find very profound every day. So yeah, there's something always happening at the gallery. Some people came in today, first time to Japan, first time to Asia, traveling a family, and they were just so enriched, they said, by just looking at the history of Japanese ceramics and how a cup is not really just a cup. It's a vessel of poetry and a vessel of spirituality and a vessel of mindfulness. And I mean, how could you not be just engaged so much every day in Japan with what we're doing, Felicity and Emily, and alive? So it's kind of a quiet time right now with the summer up, midsummer and everything. Getting ready for the spring. I'm sorry, autumn. I just approach every day like a blank sheet of paper and see what creations I can do or what's going to happen. I'm not a very good planner. There's a Jackson Brown line about that. Please forgive me if anyway. So I don't have any mission or exhibitions or anything that are on the horizon. I'm just going with the flow.
That sounds like you've got enough going on. You've got your hands on beautiful works of art. You talk with living legends, potters around Japan. You have them visit your gallery. You've always got something going on, Robert. It's amazing.
Tennis too. And I'm drinking sake from a 16th century karatsu piece with Kinsugi. And something that's really interesting that's happening around the world is that Kinsugi is so popular. People come into the gallery and they're like, do you have any Kinsugi pieces? And, we talk about healing and taking something that's scarred, maybe broken, and making it beautiful again. And a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists in the West are using this as a metaphor. Everybody's dealing with something, whether it's visible or inside of you. And how do you deal with that to heal yourself? So it's a great metaphor. This is a 450-year-old sake cup kanpai.
Kanpai. Thank you so much, Robert. It's amazing.
Oishito.
Kinsugi is all about like healing yourself and finding a way to reuse, which is very sustainable. Awesome. Emily, what's going on with you? I saw you at the Minka Summit. Yes. You have your second book published. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You did a wonderful plastering workshop. You really inspired people. And every day you're out working with natural plaster, right?
I've actually shifted focus a little bit for the last few months because I've got 2 buns in the oven.
What?
Congratulations! Wow!
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So then what's exciting is like that's coming along. Of course, that's the most mind-blowing thing ever.
That's amazing.
The souls were waiting to get in.
We were talking about that, like, so if this is reincarnation, where did they come from? Where's the last time we were all together? Like all these crazy things we'll never know, but maybe we will, who knows. But anyways, thank you. Yeah, it's a very life-changing event, I must say. But what's really cool, having moved to this Keihoku, I had no idea what was in store for us here because, my husband Yose is carpenter, I'm plastering, and, we're in woody area. So it's perfect for him. And also for me, there are just innumerable houses that need plaster work. Some are empty. And what we really what he's talked about for a long time, and I'm completely on board, is finding a way to make opportunities for people to get experience in the crafts that we have come to know. And what's incredible is that in our own valley right here, just this one valley of Keihoku, there are people who have already created the foundation for us to work upon. So basically, we just have to create programs. Like there's already a house that's ready to be started renovating, and there's a person that has been envisioning that project for a while now, and here we come stepping in, offering one of the big pieces to make that happen. And then plus all the different collaborations around that too. And there's a lot of really wonderful land artists, I guess is one way to put it, here in this community. People who draw their crafts and their thinking patterns from the environment and are really skilled at navigating the information that's there and sharing it with all different kinds of people, including university level. We have a crafts community, just, social media and such. There's a group of carpenters that from the US and the Kezurokai USA group that want to come and help us with our restoration house. We have this living house, the house we live in, and then we have our restoration project house one valley over. So that's something that we haven't been able to touch yet because there's so much to do at our living house. But that's, we know that's going to be, we're going to be able to put energy towards that next year. I will do my best with
that's so
my hands full,
exciting.
but yeah, it's super exciting. Lots of long-term projects, which is really, fun to know that we can create, long-term effects.
Yeah. Now, Felicity and Robert, that's one of the things that Emily was talking about when she was on the show, is about how she went to this training school, this amazing plaster training school, and then it went out of business, right? So are you starting to see in Kyoto, of all areas, are you guys starting to see more interest in bringing back these workshop type schools? They seem like so important right now, as we're losing a lot of the traditional knowledge, right?
Well, as you know, a good friend, Steve Bymel, started Japan Craft 21, revitalization of skills, and that's really important. I don't really deal so much on that side. A lot of potters come and they ask, where can I study this and that? And I direct them towards another website called Explore Japanese Ceramics, where they can get hands-on experience. And a lot of these traditional potters are having a hard time, actually. There was a gentleman from Seto who visited the other day. He does very traditional oribe and something called koseto. And he doesn't really have any apprentices, nobody to follow. But I know there are a lot of potters who are very interested to come here. I mean, one thing is the language barrier, one thing is visas, things like that. So I direct them to this one website. Yes, there's a great interest around the world, of course, as you know, in Japanese traditional culture and the crafts. And it's just a matter of getting people able to touch it and feel it and purchase them or learn about them. So I do take some clients out to studios and visit them and things of that nature. But certainly there's a huge interest. And as Steve said on Japan Crafts 21, there's no country in the world with a great level and depth and variety of craftsmanship and shokunin craftspeople than in Japan. We just ordered some new name cards, meishi, and I specifically wanted washi paper. So I had to wait a month for a craftsman in Echizen to make the paper for a card. So whatever you can do in a little way, it actually goes a long way.
It's worth it. It'll be worth it. Felicity, how about like in your more creative sector? Like, are you finding like writing workshops or people who are interested in filmmaking or other kind of like media? Is there workshops or training for you guys?
In English, no. Perhaps there are there's Senmon Gakko and such in Japanese. But it's something that I've been thinking about, and I think other people are starting to think about as well, similar to what Chuck was saying in the previous segment about having kind of mixing teaching with gardening, with farm knowledge. There's a couple of English-based experience schools aimed at children. It's starting up here in Kyoto for like web design, and I think they have a drama class now. And I think that would, I think like Robert was just saying, there's a huge interest in coming to Japan. So if you had a writer's workshop in Japan, I think people would come. It's just getting it set up.
Yeah.
But kind of connecting to what you were saying before with craftspeople, I've started working with a travel company that takes people into crafts, like the homes of craftsmen, and I interpret for them as they do the experience. So we've done like nishiji and ori, which is a very specific kind of weaving that's almost like watercolor. It's so there's so much variance with the threads, and Kinsugi and things like that. And everybody who is providing the experiences, they're quite elderly, and it is a concern. Like in 10, 20, 30 years, who's going to be around to pass on this knowledge. The interest in these experiences is huge, but who will be providing those experiences? So Japan maybe needs, as a country, to like kind of focus in on this, and maybe there should be more government support, subsidies, like Robert was saying, like extend visas so that foreigners can come in and be apprentices.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a really big point that stuck to me from the first group that was on. They were talking about a shift in, or that a shift is happening, but there needs to be more of this allowance for foreigners to come in and learn these crafts, because the international interest is huge. The desire is enormous. People are always contacting me for, plastering side too, and I know that's true for all these other, areas and crafts and sectors, and it really needs to become a priority like today, because of the age issue that you're talking about, Felicity. It's true.
Yeah. Robert, are you seeing that with the potters? Are they like taking on new apprentices? Are they passing on the knowledge, or are potter studios, are they closing down because they just don't have enough people to train, or what's happening in your
all
sector?
of the above.
All of the above.
So I got I was quite surprised. I got a letter I can show you with a boshu for a potter in Kyushu looking for apprentices. He goes, "Can you help me find somebody?" And well-known potter, probably in his 70s, and he lives in the mountains somewhere, and he just can't find anybody to come and apprentice. He's got a beautiful studio, beautiful, surroundings, a tea house he built, and he sent me this. And yeah, it's very hard for a lot of these, not only the potters, but the box makers, the wood cord dealers, the clay vendors. They're all 70s, 80s, and there's nobody to take it over, and they're done if that happens. And it's a loss really to the cultural rainbow of the world when those things die. Of course, that's inevitable sometimes. Japan has gone through certain upheavals throughout its history. Not everything has survived. They have to adapt and evolve. Any tradition does, because tradition is a living thing. And but if there's not enough people to follow in that tradition, and maybe morph it into something more relevant to today, if that doesn't happen, it just goes by the wayside. And my kind of mission is to support living artists as much as I can. I mean, I love Jomon pots, but if I just showed these all the time, it doesn't really benefit anybody. So the main goal of my gallery is to support living artists, because tradition is a living thing. And I'm not just talking about pottery, but if a tradition does not evolve, it either becomes useless, or it disappears, or it becomes dangerous. And I'm not talking just about pottery. Any tradition that does not evolve to meet the needs of the current day will become one of the things I just mentioned. And that's
Jose likes to say tradition is evolution.
Yeah, well, it certainly should be, so yeah, it's hard. A lot of potters are taking on part-time jobs, or they're just like, what's the point? I can't sell a 3,000 yen handmade beautiful dish. People are going to the 100 yen shop, and they're thinking that's the better buy, when in reality they don't understand the long term of it all. And taking care of something. You buy something, you pay a little extra money, you might even know the maker. You're going to use it with love and compassion and joy. That's a great word, joy. Yeah. We should all use things with great joy.
Great joy.
And
trying to live up to my name. Thank you, Robert.
I think you're doing a great job.
Oh,
okay?
Thank you.
I think you're doing a wonderful job. So, pay a little extra, and it supports a culture. It supports a potting area. You know somebody who made the piece, and you'll use it with care, and maybe pass it on to somebody in the future. If you buy something for 100 yen or unfortunately plastic, you don't really care. And if you don't care what goes on in your kitchen in some respect, then you don't really care about your association with nature and culture.
Absolutely. The foundation of sustainability right there, Robert. Thank you for summing it all up so beautifully for us. Thank you guys so much for joining this segment, this Creative Kyoto. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you so much for joining the special 500th. You guys are amazing.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Lots of love, everyone. Lots of love.
Thank you, everybody. All right. Our last final group is in the wings. Let's see. We've got Azby, we've got Jon, we've got Brett, and we have Alex. Fantastic. Great to see you. Oh, wow. This is the last segment. Everything's going so smoothly. Thank you guys so much for joining. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And congratulations, 500.
Yay!
That's a huge number. Tonight's a marathon for you. I don't know how you do it.
Oh, it's been so nice, like all the different segments and everybody, like I'm sure you guys know, everything is connected. Yeah. So even though we've had 4 different topics, there's so many underlying connections already. And I'm sure also connected to the kind of passion you all have. So for people watching, I'm sure you know all of these wonderful people. We have people who are very passionate about traditional Japanese building design and houses here. And I love having you guys in the same room. This is fantastic. Really.
Yeah, great to have everyone here together.
Yes.
It's only because it's you who invited us all.
I love it. So of course, you were all together at the first Minka Summit. That's one connection, right? And then we missed you so much, Alex and Jon, this year at the Minka Summit. That Azby and Brett. Yeah. But the connections are still there, even with you in Thailand, Alex. How's everything going? Would you like to start? You've been involved in some interesting projects there.
Oh, well, I built a little house up in Chiang Mai.
Yeah, that looks amazing.
Well, it was a big challenge for me because I've now done, dozens of houses, but they're all old ones that we restored. And the idea was to modernize these old houses. And this is the first time that I built a house from scratch, and it was a brand new house. And not only that, it's not like it's built in Thai style or something. It's actually very modernist. And we use steel superstructure and concrete floors, brick walls that were plastered, not Japanese plaster, but, all very modern, with one twist, which is that it's thatched. And so I was going back to my Chiori roots, and I really love it. It's very simple. It's very minimal, like Chiori. I mean, these old Japanese farmhouses, they were like this one. They were empty. They were just a expansive wood floors, and you looked up and you saw the thatch, and that's what it was. And so I've kind of gone back to that in this modern way. But we did it with Thai thatch, which is rather different. So it was quite an experiment. It's never been done, what we did, because Thailand's a lot like Japan. Thatch is for old things. And in fact, there's a huge boom internationally in Europe, I should say, in Denmark and Holland and France, where they're doing these incredible super modern thatch buildings, museums, private houses, even city halls, are thatched. In Japan, that's just unthinkable because thatch means old, right? And Thailand, too, thatch either means old or some kind of a tourist pavilion, So the idea that you'd build a modern house and thatch it, that was rather new, and the thatchers didn't quite know what to do. So it was an experiment.
Wow. Well, Brett, I remember seeing you at the French couple's thatch house, and they learned, and Azby, I saw you there as I was leaving. They had learned how to grow the straw, harvest the straw, make the thatch roof, and now they're passing the knowledge off to others. What was your feeling about that, Brett? Did you enjoy that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I enjoyed meeting them and talking to them, and that's something that I sort of have waiting for me in the fairly near future. So I was definitely interested to see and talk to them about that. Up until this point, everything I've done is with tile roofed houses for the most part, and looking forward to a project in Nagano where I'll be dealing with thatch. So yeah, that's exciting.
That's amazing. Azby, what did you think of that house?
I loved it, and you know, I admire people who take that kind of project on, and I think a few things that struck me. One, on the one hand, they're very hardcore, authentically oriented, but at the same time very experimental and doing new things. Like they made that bizarre chicken feeder, and they're, you know, the house for the the animals, and the stable for the horses, and it's all not really traditional, but done with a very strong traditional sensibility and a great awareness of, you know, the need to link things environmentally, ecologically, etc. So I like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, it would be great if, as the years go on, like 5 years down the road, if we saw more people doing that kind of thing with that kind of love, and also design sensibility and care.
And lots of work with the community as well, right? So linking a lot of those projects with other community members who are, you know, whether they're, you know, taking the trees out of the forest or what have you. So I think that community connection that they have is really important as well.
Yeah. So many things rely on growing community. And again, we're already looking, and Alex, you know, you think of your what you've been doing since 30 years ago, whatever. And I look back over these decades and wow, it's grown into this incredible community. And
it really has.
Very, very international community, and lots of know-how. And lots of experience to be shared, and easier to approach. And this is the key. It's always about the people, and finding people who want to do the same things, who love the same things.
And that group's growing to an incredible degree. I have to say the first Kinooka summit was a real shock to me. I had no idea that there were so many people out there, and they were doing some fascinating things. I mean, it's very active and lively, and there's more and more and more, as I'm sure we all know. You know, we get requests from all over the world nowadays. Everyone wants to own a Kinooka. Little do they know what a black hole it's going to be.
well, Jon, let's get you in here. You've been doing workshops. So talk about getting people involved, right? You've been doing carpentry and other workshops in your area, haven't you?
Not here in Okayama.
Oh, okay.
No. We've been invited to the U.S. And Yamamoto's, he's in Maine right now, actually doing another workshop. And we're on the road to starting a school here in Okayama where we'll do month-long workshops, probably 4 times a year. So yeah, we would definitely like to open up that possibility to everybody.
That's great.
Jon, your workshops will be aimed at overseas, people from overseas, non-Japanese, or what are you thinking?
I guess it's not really aimed, but it looks like it's going to be mostly people from overseas. We've had, you know, we have about 7-8 years of taking on apprentices, so to speak, here. And it's been, and we have so many people that want to come do that. We just don't have the capacity to do it. And so it was kind of a natural extension of that. I mean, we still have 2 apprentices, one from France and one from the US with us right now, which is great. You know, we've got a bunch of other people kind of in the works. But there's so, I mean, I get somebody every single day, if not multiple people that want to do that. And and you can, right now, that goes back to what you were talking about, Joy, with Emily and everybody, is that essentially right now, all we can get is what's called a cultural heritage, a cultural studies visa, which is unpaid. It has to be unpaid. So you have to have the money to be there for a whole year and not get paid. And we can house our apprentices and basically make it so that they don't have to pay anything to live. But the bottom line is they can't really do anything. So just having them here as a company that actually has to make money is, for a year, essentially worthless. In a sort of brutal way of putting it. if they could stay for 3 years, 5 years, if Japan could open that up to make it a more, you know, a broader, longer term thing, then we could actually do more, and we could prepare professionals, which is what I want to do. I want people to be able to be, I want people to become professionals that know what a kominka is, or a temple is, or a shrine is, or a tea house is, and actually don't have to DIY it, but actually do it right. Because I think we have to make a very strict distinction between saving kominka for posterity and just fixing a kominka that's going to last another 30 years, and then it's not going to, you know, both of them are okay. But what we're trying to do is, you know, make people who can do this in the future, and buildings that can last another 100 or 200 years, not just 30 or 50. So hopefully the school will be kind of like the jumping off point of that. I don't know exactly how it's going to go.
That's a really important point. Alex, Azby, Brett, you want to jump in here?
Well, I think, I mean, just what you say, Jon, it is important to have those people, the people who are especially coming to work with you guys, to be able to get paid for that work. You know, especially if you're going to invest the kind of time that it takes to gain the skills that are required at that level. You know, like you say, there aren't a lot of people who can afford to do a year or longer. If you wanted to do an actual full on apprenticeship, you know, with 3 to 5 years or something like that, then to ask someone to do that unpaid the entire time in this, you know, modern life just is sort of unreasonable.
It's ironic that Japan welcomes foreigners who want to study these crafts and arts, but doesn't want them to make a living from it, or a living at all. You cannot. Not only can you not make money from the institution where you might be studying, but you cannot make money from anywhere. And we actually had. I had a young intern who was fascinated by scroll mounting, and we desperately need that because they're all closing down. And the scroll mounters are all in their 70s and are retiring. And he was German. He adored it. He really wanted to do it, but he couldn't afford that. He couldn't spend 3 years with no income. So yeah, it is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to people like Len Brackett, who passed away last year, who was really, you know, one of the first non-Japanese that I was aware of who really learned traditional Japanese carpentry, went back to the States to practice that. But, you know, he found a way somehow back in the 80s to be here and to apprentice and to scratch out a living at the beginning. And I've met other non-Japanese at the time doing it as well. So I feel like there must be ways to get around these sort of administrative, bureaucratic hurdles. But I think, Jon, yeah, you're really right. When someone starts to work for you, they're not giving you much of value. It's often you're feeding them with information and experience and giving that all to them, but it may be a long time before they can actually repay that in terms of their labor and skill. And often, and you know, we were talking 2 or 3 years, that's really not long enough, you know. We know it needs to be a lot longer, but this is the situation all across the board. And yet I'm still fascinated by the degree to which it's become possible to learn about Japanese carpentry skills, you know, if not kominka, but other things outside of Japan, or with other people like yourself, you know, who are actually not Japanese, you know. Thinking back to 30 years, whatever, going, wow, that's an amazing shift in awareness, understanding, skill, and sort of this global network that's grown on this. So I'm kind of optimistic about it, and I think we may see some really surprising developments overseas. People learning and being able to maybe then continue this tradition and evolve it in a different direction. This, again, Robert had great comments, you know, in the last session. You know, tradition is about, you know, evolution, and that these things are going in different directions, which I'm kind of interested to see, partly because of this great international interest and the willingness of people outside of Japan to pay for it, to make it happen.
Yeah, I think we have to be optimistic about it, right? I mean, there's no point in not being optimistic about it. And you know, but we also have to be realistic. And the reality is we kind of need to go abroad where we're way more valued, and make a little bit of money. And, you know, it's not like we have to rob anybody, but just make what a daily wage is in America, and I can make 4 times what I make here. And that has to do with what people make in Japan, and also wanting to just work with regular folks and not, you know, I don't mind working for super wealthy, but, you know, I don't mind building the ceramic artist down the street's house either. So I think part of what I've decided is kind of, I know it sounds silly, but it's almost kind of like a Robin Hood, where if I go to the States and work for a little while or do something, and people you know, as long as the client is happy and doesn't, you know, at the end of it, it's like they're really happy. They're happy to pay that much. Then it's strange because your value is totally different in the US or Europe than it is in Japan if you want to work with the same person, you know, in like the, you know, hierarchy of our world. And so you just have to kind of fly over there and do it there and then come back and, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we can do that, which is really cool. So I guess, yeah, I agree with you. I'm very optimistic about it. I'd love to create more professionals.
Well, Alex, you often talk about the projects that you do wouldn't really be possible without government funding, for one thing, right? But once you get it to a better level, then you can run a business like a guest house, or you can start bringing people in. But without that buffer or higher wages, like you're talking about, Jon, it's really a problem right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the case of these government projects, the point is that Japan is addicted to public works. They're going to spend that money anyway. So my argument is, don't build the useless roads and the damaging dams and all the tetrapods and the rest of it that are not needed. Instead, let's spend it on something that will actually A, benefit the environment, B, protect and support the culture, but more importantly, make money. Once that road is built, from there on, it's just a cost to maintain it, even though it's not even used. These houses, once they're done, you know, create a sustainable new business. You know, but one of the things that came up in your earlier discussion with Robert Yellin and the others on the subjects of crafts is the real crisis that we've got in really the subsidiary craft work. So there's the potter who makes the pot, and that's kind of obvious. But what about, as Robert was saying earlier, Robert Yellin, the guy that makes the box, or even the cords that you tie the box with, or the people that provide the lumber or the tinder for that burn in the kilns? All of those are imperiled. And so, you know, I hope, while all this is slowly happening abroad, I hope in Japan it doesn't just evaporate. So that's a real concern.
Well, I was talking to a carpenter in Awajishima, and they were saying, you know, right now we have Hon Ibushigawara, which is like a, you know, it's a very special type of roof tile. But the reality is, historically, that earth is so far down in Awajishima, where it's famous for that, that you have to really dig down to get it. And historically, all the earth before that was used for other things. So for ceramics, for whatever. And now, because it's not, and they have to just dig down to get it, and then it costs more. And so that's starting to disappear too. So even the potter's clay is in peril right now. And or the roof tiles rather as well. So that seems like you know, I mean, there's so many different examples of that that I could give about the, you know, all the different people that make our work possible. You know, not just the carpenters. The carpenters, we're actually, things are a lot better than everything else, to be honest.
There do seem to be certain areas where there is some energy and revitalization. You know, the tool market for Japanese, you know, Japanese crafted chisels and, you know, that sort of thing is going pretty strong. And although obviously the tool makers are still declining, there is a demand, you know, to a certain degree for that sort of thing. You mentioned thatching as well, and there is actually sort of an increase, at least in certain areas, of younger thatchers kind of banding together and forming companies to rethatch some houses. So there are some sort of bright spots among the
Brett,
other
I'm
areas that are.
I'm very happy you brought this one up, Brett, because Thatch is my special love and interest. And yes, there has really been a kind of a renaissance in thatching, unexpectedly. And you have some of these young guys, and one of them, or a couple of them, have studied in Europe and have come back with these European techniques and are doing some quite experimental stuff. Of course, in Japan, there's regulatory difficulty, but still, they're starting to do it. And so, yeah, thatch is an exciting area.
Yeah.
I hear a new book coming out, Alex. Is that right? On thatch, perhaps?
No. There's some thatch in it. But it's not on thatch. But
I was right.
Not now. But thanks for Joy. Thank you. I should do a book on thatch. A couple times thought about it because again, this idea that thatch and thatch is wonderful on old buildings, but that isn't the only possible use of thatch by any means. And within Japan, people mostly have no clue of the possibilities of what's actually a very a very advanced material. And so, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And actually, made of a variety of different materials as well, too. There's not just like one kind of thatch. There's such a wide variety of things that make up this thatch.
And there's a
there's the whole layers, right?
Yeah. There's a whole connection between thatching and straw bales and other kind of plastering. And I know an architect passed away recently who did walls of thatch, which were very, very beautiful, which also were connected with very traditional, clay wall making. But I think one thing I want to then reflect on is, looking back, I also feel like in general, things have gotten better in terms of interest, more people who know how to do it, more people able to do this work. You can find to do this work in most parts of Japan, but running against time as the craftspeople are aging, as materials, wood material, forestry resources are disappearing, as the buildings themselves are crumbling into dust. So it's a race against time. But I look back and I think, wow, things are much livelier, and that makes me fairly optimistic about that. But it's true that it's definitely a kind of ecosystem. And looking way back when I was first looking at Japanese carpentry, realizing that without enough carpenters who need certain kinds of tools, let's say a Miyadaiko temple carpenter, the tool makers are not going to have the work. And if the tool makers disappear, well, there's no replacement for that. And of course, that's everything from the steel to like you mentioned, who's going to be providing the forging, the forges for these things as well. It's all interconnected, but for me, the central feature on Minka, or this kind of traditional architecture in general, is forests and what's happening to our forests. And this is a big connection I found with people in other parts of the world. For instance, we spent a lot of time with the Timber Framers Guild, who came and attended the last Minka Summit, and I spent some time with them in the U.S. last fall. This is a key focus of people in the U.S., in Canada, in Europe, is how do we maintain the forest resources, and how do we avoid simply having wood as a commodity, that this respect for this typical Japanese respect for every tree as a living being. And it's a kind of sensibility that I think people really, really appreciate and understand more now, but yet it's a race against time. And so I hope it gets better, for the next generation. I mean, that's all we can do is hand things off and try to inspire the next generation. I really feel like that's the position that I am now, and maybe other people of our same age group are.
Absolutely.
It's strange. One thing that occurs to me is that, for example, as a carpenter doing this traditional work right now, one thing that really changed when I was in Kyoto apprenticing 15 years ago or whatever, was we used to take we buy logs and we take them to the sawmill and get them sawed. And now everybody has a sawmill. I mean, we bought a sawmill for our shop 8 years ago or something, because the sawmills are disappearing. And I mean, Okayama, they weren't there anyways. In Kyoto, there was only a few. But in a way, it's kind of a good thing, because we all have to, these smaller carpenters, we have to understand more and saw, our own. And then the other kind of ironic thing is that wood is just cheap as chips. You can get beautiful cedar, beautiful cypress, all these things, from Japanese, locally sourced for super cheap. So the question is, what's the pivot point? Does it go? I mean, I feel really lucky in a way because I can go get that, and then that helps me be able to do these projects or whatever. But I also am very prescient of the fact that this is also a broken system that's allowing it to be possible. So I wonder which way, like how we can affect it going back towards, okay, maybe the trees are a little bit more expensive, but we have more people. And part of it's just doing the work and then people seeing it and appreciating it. But I wonder if you guys have any insight on that.
Oh boy, well, the mismanagement of forests in Japan is a massive subject. And actually, the book that, before I get to Thatch, the book I've been wanting to do for years and I've started a bit of work on, but it'll take years, is on the trees of Japan, including what are they? What were the great trees? And how is that lumber used? And how is it valued? And what are the other uses? Something Azby would certainly know a lot about, because it isn't just as lumber that they were valued, right? Their branches, their fruits, their leaves, and then the modern Sugi disaster. And part of this low pricing that you're talking about is the result of the mismanaged forests. And that is just a huge subject. And so far, in Japan, the university professors and all those people they're bought and paid for by the system. And so mostly they just tiptoe around it. Although there are some wonderful books in Japanese that describe this very clearly. So there's something to talk about it. But so far it hasn't quite been really dealt with. And so I'm dying. That is my project for the next few years. Trees.
That sounds like a great book. Very important.
Yeah.
We're all paying a tax to the forests right now. Did you notice that on your national tax this year? There's a percentage that we're all giving to the forest. And I hope that will help.
But Joy, it's just going to plant more Suki.
Oh, no, please say no.
Low pollen Sugi.
That's what it is.
The low pollen Sugi.
Right.
Yeah, so in other words,
I thought it was to thin the forest.
You thought it was to make like deciduous forests or mixed forests?
Yes.
But there are
too naive? Yeah.
It's to plant more Sugi.
Yeah, but there are good initiatives in different parts of the country. It's usually local or regional to, really try to restore the health of the forest to mixed forests and to increase deciduous species, etc. And it's going to take a generation, at best, to do that. But there are efforts, but it's so piecemeal and requires some visionary person with pull in local government to make that sort of thing happen. And there are not enough people thinking that way, because when people are looking for lumber to use, they're looking at the price list, and it's going to be 90% is going to be imported from somewhere just because of the low cost. So people need to understand that forest, the value is not simply as sticks of Sugi, that it's actually supporting the entire ecosystem, watershed management, all these things, and it needs to be kept in a vital and healthy condition.
And it
now,
was such
Brett,
a core
you are reusing a lot of old wood. Of course, Jon, in your latest remodel as well, all the curved, beautiful pieces. Are you trying to reuse wood as much as possible because it has so much value?
Yeah, I mean, I try and reuse as much as I can. Usually the projects that I work on are majority reused wood. And to be quite honest, a big part of why that is because I'm on a small island here and it's really hard to get new materials. You have to bring it from the mainland, and it's just it's easier sometimes for me to get a hold of beams, because there are also, unfortunately, houses being dismantled at a greater rate than a greater rate at all times, but that means that there is old materials that I can go in and reclaim and use in other projects. And one of the things that brings up is that, when you're working with these older houses, you realize how much more variety the old forests had, because you're working with a much wider variety of materials in these old houses. The main beams might be pine, and you might have floorboards that are chestnut, or there's just a variety of different materials, and you see the natural shapes that they're in, and that gives you sort of a sense of the handcrafted nature of these houses, and and the time and skill that went into crafting them, and just the sort of respect for the materials, and then just how central the forest was to people's livelihoods, at that time, and how important a resource the forest was. And I think that's something that, going back to what Azby was saying, that's something that's very important, and I would like to see more of that sort of recognized these days as well, just how important the forests are, not just as a commodity, not just for the lumber, but as a part of the entire ecosystem, and a part of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you're pointing to, Brett, though, is like, there's all these different types of wood in a building, and it's usually very local, and we talk about respect and stuff like that, but I'm pretty aware of the fact that, you just can't go get other stuff. I mean, 100 years, 200 years ago, you go down the street and you get what you can get, and you use it, and you take care of it. So I think we also need to be like, not be too, and so what that means is we have to be intentional about this. And we also have to realize that it is expensive. You can't, it takes time to do what these people did. And so you can do other things, but you can do other things faster. And you can kind of, what I like to do is, do things that are less expensive where I can, and do things that, but, we live in a totally different world. And so I think we can't romanticize it too much. And we have to realize that, we can do local, we can do all that sort of thing, but it's not cheap to renovate a komenka. I just want to tell everybody that. Like, it's as expensive as building a new house if you want to do it right. And if you don't do it right, you're killing the komenka. So that's okay too, but just know it. That's the truth,
I guess what
truth.
Yeah. I guess I'm just reflecting on both what Brett said and what you just said, Jon. And maybe this is something that I think Alex has touched on time and time again, over the years, is it's hard for me to escape a sense of impoverishment when I look at, for instance, let's say the types of wood that were available, and the types of skills that were available, and the types of sensibility that was brought to that. The time, we're impoverished in terms of time as well. And you have to have a sort of historical perspective in order to recognize that. And yes, it's expensive. We're in a different world, but why? And does it have to be this way? Or can we somehow, at least in our small corners, help plant the seeds, to help build or restore or somehow evolve these other sensibilities?
If I could add to what Azby's saying, for example, and Jon, a follow up on really your key point, which is the expense. And there's a mechanism as to why wood it has to be imported from Japan and abroad, and it's expensive, because Japan, supposedly the land of quality, chose the most low quality sugi to grow in a very low quality way. And they could have been, for example, planting with keaki. If you cut down one 70-year-old keaki tree, it would probably be worth 300 sugis. And you could even export that beautiful wood to the world. But they didn't plant the keaki, they wiped it out. And so now if you want keaki, it costs a fortune. So there's a reason, institutionalized reason why these things are now rare and expensive. And the reality, as you say, that is the reality. However, with more sustainable forestry and more intelligent, even business-minded forest, weirdly, the sugi, which was done in the name of making money, is a financial disaster. And they didn't plant the wood that would make money. So all of this is correctable if there's some vision brought to it.
And I think that's part of the point that I wanted to make with those different materials as well, is that there was an intentionality to it, and they were using the materials that were local to them because that's the easiest, and that was what was around them. But there was an intentionality to why those materials were also available locally. The ancestors of those people planted the seeds, as you were talking about, planted those trees with the intention that in the future they could be harvested to use for building new houses. And I think that's just sort of a mindset that would be nice to have a little more of. It's not gonna create enough trees to fulfill the whole, you know, demand for everything, but in certain areas and in certain cases.
Yeah, and what Azby was saying earlier too, which is that the trees weren't just for houses, or maybe it was Alex, that there was all these other things that they were for, and that's why they you know, from food to, you know, all sorts of, you know, material goods that they were for, and that's part of the problem that we have to face, is that we don't need those anymore. I mean, we could want them, but they don't necessarily need them anymore, right? Like one thing that comes to mind, for instance, is just wood for your bath. You know, there's a lot of great wood that's in architecture because it was also the same kind of wood that was great for heating the bath, you know, among other things.
Especially pine. Yeah.
Yeah, or, you know, what I think of as a lot of the other hardwoods that you find all around.
I mean, what I use for making charcoal obviously is the same kind of thing.
Usually oak, isn't it, for charcoal?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few different varieties, but yeah, oak is the main one. Or camellia down here in the islands.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, camellia.
You guys are so passionate about wood and trees because you've all worked with it and been carpenters or connected to carpenters or written about carpenters. But I am so excited to have you four in the same room here. I would love to know what Brett and Jon have in terms of questions for their mentors, Azby and Alex. Anything, you guys? Put you on the spot here?
I think Azby and I have the questions.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
You first, Alex.
Alex, you got questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to ask both of you, because this is an issue that comes up a lot and that I think about, which is when we're restoring these kominka. I mean, I'm a great believer. I always say I'm pulling them into the modern age. So I'm not in the restoration business. I'm not trying to show people that this is how it was in the Meiji era or something. I want to modernize them because otherwise modern people can't live in them or use them. That said, to what degree do we want to really stick with traditional, everything traditional, right? Traditional plastering, using, you know, bamboo and all the full traditional approach, or to what degree do we use modern materials? And I've found my own mix, but I'd be really curious to know what you guys and how you guys think of it and what you're doing with regard to that.
I think everybody's going to have their own mix and their own philosophy. I personally tend to be on the sort of very using the traditional techniques and materials, and that's my own sort of personal philosophy. And I feel like there's a niche in there, and there's people that enjoy that, but it's not going to be the way that everybody wants to do it, and that's totally fine. My personal sort of feeling is that I would like to sort of keep that possibility alive for the folks who do want to do things that way, and other folks can, you know, can do it a different way, and that's totally fine. I think there's room for all different ways of tackling these problems.
And it's also really the only way that those skills will survive is if we go on doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I have a different take on this, which is I don't think it's about the tradition. For me, it's about using materials that can go back to the earth easily. You know, so if you cut it, you open up and it's the same material. So the tradition, oftentimes, if not more often than not, rather, kind of wins the day. You know, you try a bunch of things and you're like, damn it, I can't beat 2,000 years of tradition, you know? But that said, you know, if you've got wood, stone, glass, earth, all these wonderful materials, you can do things that nobody ever imagined. Like I can make a window that you can shoot a gun at and it doesn't leak, you know, if you want to do it. You just have to be interested in that next step. And then you have to have that client that, you know, wants to do it with you or whatever. And so that's my focus, is like, I don't, you know, and I'm not against these other materials completely either. There's a time and a place for them, but to the extent that I can, if I don't need to do it, then I'd rather go the other route, but then really go into the science, like the investigation of how that can be done intelligently, with quite frankly all the different tools that we have in our modern day. That's the leg up that we have now in 2024, is that we have this incredible set of tools that they didn't have. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that kind of connects me to what I would like to ask you guys, because, your work is depending on clients, and so much of what, let's say, builders or architects need to do is to help clients understand, to educate their clients to some degree, while responding to what they want or what they desire. And often that leads to conflicts. And I'm just wondering if there are any particular stories you might have to share, without naming names, of a situation where you thought something should really be done a certain way, and the client just wouldn't go for it, and you sort of locked horns on this issue. And what was it about?
I don't know. Maybe Jon has more more of those kind of stories than I do.
Can I jump in while they're thinking?
Yeah. Sure.
Of course, my clients have largely been the government.
Yeah.
And boy, do we have those issues all the time.
Yeah.
And for example, they will not use any kind of kozai, old material, as a support, as a standing column that will support anything. It's all got to be decorative. And that seems to be some kind of a rule. I don't know how it came in. Those kind of issues. Or even silly things like with our houses where we would want to put electronic keys where you type in the number, and that wasn't in the handbook. They wouldn't allow it. And we had to go all the way to the prefecture to get approval, for things like that. So when it comes to bureaucracy, there is an awful lot of it.
Yeah.
I think it might be a little easier with private. Lately, I've been doing more work with private clients. I've shifted a lot, actually. And it's much easier.
Yeah,
I think what Alex is saying rings true for me.
Yeah, they know what they're getting because they've seen your work and they come to you for that. But still, I've seen situations where maybe the carpenter's more of a purist or more stubborn, and sometimes the client,
Yeah, that's a good point, Azby. I mean, for example, Soma Kosha is really stubborn, and to Alex's point, when we work on cultural heritage sites or something, it's exactly what he just said all the time, and you can't do anything about it. But the good news is, A, you find out what you don't want to do, and B, as long as you can be polite and vocal, and if you're working hard and you have integrity, it actually does do something. When you work with these people, there's this huge group of people that they're architects and they're not working with their hands on it, but it affects them. If you're polite, you work with integrity, and then you voice your opinion in a senao way, like I don't know how you say it in English, meek way. So I think you are affecting change to some extent. I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen, but then on the other end of it is, we just from the get-go are usually really clear with the client. Like, we're really, stubborn about what we do. And so if you don't want to do that, let's not even move forward. And then sometimes we get a client, like I was saying, who wants to do something kind of new and interesting. And that can be really cool when you feel like they have the capacity to do that, which means time, energy, passion, all that, money, all that stuff. And if they don't seem to have all that covered, but they still want to do something kind of inventive, then you kind of have to say, sorry, I don't think we can do that on this project, because you don't want to disappoint them, and so there's a lot of different opportunities. It's it's super varied, but both of those things have happened, to say the least. Yeah.
I'm going to mix it up a little bit because it looks like Robert Yellin is in the waiting room. Robert, do you want to jump in here and say hi?
No.
No. Okay.
We didn't scare you, did we?
All right.
Your ears must have been
Get him
burning.
back out. Yeah, we mentioned clay, so that must have brought him in. Yeah. Sorry,
But I
Brett. Yeah, go ahead,
Joy,
Jon.
I want to ask Azby and Alex some questions. I mean, they kind of
Yeah,
flipped the
go
tables
for it.
on
Go
us,
for it.
but I guess what I want to ask you is, I want you to give me some insight on what makes you the most optimistic about this, because I like hearing that.
I can answer that one real fast. You guys, the existence of you guys, and you guys weren't around 20, 30 years ago. Honestly, that's what does it. I see these people doing incredible things, and it didn't exist. And so that's what makes me optimistic. And it's not only the Thatchers, but Brett making charcoal and you doing what you're doing with carpentry and plastering and all the rest of it. That's just astonishing. So that's what makes me optimistic.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. Thinking back to the time when, for instance, Takeshita-san, when I first became aware of Takeshita-san, our great colleague and mentor, I suppose, to us as well. When he did a house, it was in the newspaper. It was like, wow, it was news. And now there are so many people. And again, you guys don't think you're young, but you are.
I'm pretty young.
Younger people, doing this, and like I was saying earlier, it's possible to find great craftsmen in almost every region of Japan for carpentry, for thatching, for roofing, for clay, for almost everything else. So, and this is a tremendous growth. It's still only a small, tiny fraction of what we hope it could be, or what it may really take for it to become fully viable to continue for another generation or several. But compared to 30 years ago, it's a lot better from every aspect that I can see. And again, it's this race against time, though. And will this grow to a great enough critical mass, which it looks like it has, when we go to the Miko Summit, will it grow enough to really have the momentum just to continue as a cultural norm rather than an exception? And to me, that will be an important tipping point if that happens.
And I would say,
sorry, Brett, I'm just going to cut it. You speak first.
Sorry, just a quick thing. Yeah, I would just say that these days, maybe part of it is that there are so many great opportunities for sharing that information that maybe didn't exist in the past, whether it be social media or YouTube or whatever. There's so many opportunities for people to connect and join together and share their knowledge that that sort of makes things grow at a more exponential rate as they gain awareness.
You actually said what I was going to say. Throw it out. It's people like Joy that are also part of this story and this ecosystem of the influencers and the YouTubers and the people that write articles about it, and Joy, people like Joy who really follow up on it. That's part of it, and that's new. Wow, that really didn't exist.
Yeah, it's an example of the internet as a positive force, which often we don't see enough, right? So.
We're getting some reverb. Is that? It looks like maybe Jon coming through yours.
Sorry, my AirPods just died.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know why. Yeah, you sound like robots all of a sudden, like the AI. The AI has taken over.
I don't know if people could hear it, but basically it's this internet ecosystem.
Yeah,
which is also is so important.
Information sharing and community building.
The echo's still there, isn't it?
The echo's still there. Maybe turn down the speakers, everybody.
How about now? I put the AirPod in.
I can still hear it.
Yeah, I still hear the reverberation.
Huh. Well.
Oh, well, we're coming up to time, so we've got just a few more minutes anyway.
Can I say one last thing if it's not too reverb? We need to tap in to the same community of Japanese people, because one of the biggest things for me is that I have a community of hundreds and hundreds of Japanese carpenters and plasterers and all of that who teach me, who encourage me, who support me every step of the way. And I don't know how we do that more as foreign people other than maybe learning Japanese, but that is huge. If you can be a part of that community, it's massive.
And I think maybe that goes back a little bit to what Robert Yellin, the previous guest, was saying, how he had a potter that was looking for apprentices. And in my experience, if there was sort of a way to create those connections, there probably are, a whole world of people who would jump at that opportunity to be an apprentice to a potter in mountainside Japan or something. It's just sort of making those connections, and for somebody who's in their 70s or 80s and his main focus is pottery, maybe they don't know how to make those kind of connections, but the opportunities are there, and the people who want to take advantage of those opportunities are also there.
I would love to hear Alex and Azby give you guys advice for when you guys should start writing books. Because Alex and Azby, you started like in the practical sense, like Jon and Brett are doing, and you started writing books at some point. Is it a time for them to start writing books? What do you think?
I think there's any time to write books. And although you may feel it's going to take away from your time for your work, and in my case, I didn't expect to write a book, but ended up writing what became a book, and wrote more and more. Of course, Alex seems to have a new book every year, so it's better advice from him. But I say go ahead and write down the material and keep your notes and document the stuff, and then write down or record what you're thinking and feeling about the work, because that is the most important part. I mean, the technical side is easy to communicate in a way, but really, why is it important, what's important, and why, and in your own words, in your own language. I think if you can capture that, you should. Maybe talking to your recorder every now and then if writing is going to be laborious. And I just want to say, in my case, I started writing way back. I was in the 1980s, and we didn't have internet or email or anything, and I would write 10-page letters to my mom, and saying, this is what I saw today. And that became the voice that I write with, as if I'm explaining to my mother, who is intelligent, but just didn't know much about the subject. So always think of the person. There should be an imaginary person that you're addressing about this, is my advice. So.
But, Azby and I are relics of a bygone era because we write. And I'm not sure that writing books is the only way to do it. And I would imagine that YouTubing, or for example, doing a series of YouTube programs about your even doing Brett, if you did one on charcoal, I would be your most loyal watcher. It's fascinating, really. And there are people that watch those things, and it matters. And we know from Jaya, the impact that can have about houses. And I would say that writing might not be the only way. And I actually wish that I had more time to do YouTube programs because sometimes the impact of that can be even stronger.
Yeah.
Could I just ask a quick question on how do you narrow down the topic that you like? How do you choose something that out of all of the things that you could write about or to make a video about, how do you sort of find the one that is like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to focus on and do as my main topic?
You first, Alex.
Well, for me, it's always come naturally. It's whatever I was passionate about. It's passion. You're passionate about charcoal, you do charcoal. Later on, you get passionate about floorboards, you do floorboards. So it's not like only do one thing, and and one's own interests shift and grow. But I was passionate about Ia Valley and Chiori, and so I started with that. Mm-hmm. Then I got passionate about the destruction of the environment, and I did something very different, very journalistic, and switched to Dogs and Demons. And then recently I've come back more to let's find what is beautiful and remains within Japan that we can still see and value, And these are all what I care about at the moment. So that would be my feeling. Azby?
Yeah, it's definitely... It's always emerged out of my own fascination with something and my own wanting to know more about it. But then at some point, this decision to make a book out of it, it becomes, because there seems to be a problem that I think is worth addressing. There's something that needs attention called to it, whether it's environmental things or something about resource use in houses or whatever. So maybe I can tend to be a bit of a scold from time to time, saying, "Oh, you people, you have to pay attention to this." But I definitely have that aspect. But it begins with my own love of whatever it is I'm looking at and experiencing and doing. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Looks like we might have lost Brett. He might come back. Sorry.
That last thing that you guys, about passion that you guys just both said, this is what I keep telling all of the apprentices. It's like, if you, it should just kind of be a fountain spring that comes out of you, and if it's not, then you probably need to go somewhere else. Because nobody can make you want it,
right.
And you're not going to be happy if you're not just like following that. And so that advice about writing really rings, close to my heart about that. Right now I just want to keep doing this, so I'm just doing it. But
and I also want to say, again, as an elder, all of us get to a point, maybe several times, where we say, "Wow, is this really worth it?" Can I continue this? Is it really worth it? And maybe we make changes in our lives, or maybe some people quit, or some people just find a way, say, yes, it's worth it. But don't be afraid of that, or don't feel like that's a sign of failure or a lack of your own talent or willpower. We all get there. And partly it's because we're dealing with stuff that really requires social support from society in general. And I think, Alex, I'm sure you went through that, where you say, "My God, I've been talking about this for a long time, doing everything I can, and nothing's changing." And you just say, "What am I doing?" Right?
You feel like a voice in the wind, But then small things happen, and you say, "Oh my God, someone did pick up on that."
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even someone you ever met or knew. It can be in a rather distant place and and you go, "Gosh, yeah, it was worth doing."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at the macro, for example, after all these decades of me talking about public works and forestry and and I feel, well, it's had zero impact, but then you go to somewhere and they're actually doing something experimental. Right. They're thinking, and people are out there thinking, there are people writing books about it, and you go, there's a community there. There are some people who want to know this. It's worth slogging on,
Yeah.
Plus,
they're looking for people to learn from.
Yeah. Plus, now we're addicted to writing and we can't stop.
But I think, like Robert Yellin does with updating his Instagram all the time, right? Like even old dogs can learn new tricks, kind of thing. I don't mean to call anybody old, but that's the expression, right? Brett, you've been trying to do YouTube. I know Jon has as well, right? But it's also, you need the following. You need people watching and people engaged. But doing it regularly, that's great advice.
I've started and stopped a few times, and I did actually do one on charcoal making last year. That was like probably the one time that I actually sat down and edited clips together, and all of a sudden that's the one that just took off. And
I've got to look for that.
Yeah, there definitely is I think an audience there that would be interested in, and it's just, for me, I think it's while doing the work to have the presence of mind to set the camera and take the footage and make sure that it actually is going to look decent, so that people are going to want to watch it, or that it has value to them. So.
Yeah. Now, one last question I'd love to ask, which I asked Azby at the Minka Summit for the Minka Masters panel, is how can we inspire the future generations to be interested and care about traditional houses, traditional design? I would love to hear from you, Jon. You've got a young son. I love to see you introducing carpentry to him. You think he's got the bug. How can we inspire kids to be interested? Just get them working with us? Yeah.
No idea.
Play, make it play, right? Something like that, right?
I don't even know why I'm interested, to be honest.
Oh.
I don't know I don't know what it is. I mean, I played video games my whole young adult life, and I didn't do anything like this. I have no clue, Joy. I'm sorry. I apologize. I mean, some people get inspired. I don't know what it is. It's probably something in the air that we don't see, that we don't understand.
But I think keep getting it out there, right? What you're doing, just talking about it will inspire other people.
Joy,
Right?
what you're saying, is key, Joy. And Jon you're both kind of touching on the same thing, which is you don't inspire people because you don't even know who they're going to be, and people come because of their karma and something within themselves. But you can make yourself available. You can put the information out there that is fun and beautiful and exciting and amazing and cool and forward-looking and all those things, futuristic and all those things that we can show that this is. And as to who's going to take up on it, I wouldn't have a clue. You don't know. You can't calculate it, but someone will, and they're just out there. And so it's about being available, I think.
I totally agree. I think, like I was just saying, just put your passion out there. If you have a passion for this or for whatever it is, if you put that passion out there and are willing to share it, then there are going to be people who pick up on that.
Yeah, I think, Joy, maybe my reply when you asked me at the summit, and you may remember, I don't remember, had something to do with the importance of people actually experiencing it themselves, physically in reality. So the more that we can make opportunities or build situations where people can go, and if it's not an actual building workshop or sort of thing, or it's just going to be inside a beautiful old house. And one example was that I'm teaching at Japan Women's University in the architecture department. I brought my grad students to Kamakura to visit Takeshi-san's houses, and there was 16 students. It was their first time to be in a real Japanese minka. They were at the end of their architectural education, and none of them had actually ever really experienced one, which was shocking to me. But I could just see something melting inside them and being replaced by this pure experiential joy and awe. And the result of that, maybe it will take years to pay off. But I think this is something in particular people actually have to experience it, and that's something that all of us can do, is to help make it possible for more people to experience these beautiful things.
That's so true. And take away the idea that it's dark and dirty and cold, right?
Even if it is.
Beautiful. But it's charming and it's beautiful. And it's
well, if there's anything that inspired me, it was definitely just happening to be in some of those spaces. And then even when I was younger in America, going to an old barn in New Hampshire or covered bridge, before I even knew about Japan, if there was anything that inspired carpentry, perhaps when you say that, then it clicks to me. Yeah, I mean, that felt amazing. I didn't know what was going on, but it felt amazing. So don't let them all disappear, I guess, is the answer.
Well, that is our time. We have to end it there. We could talk all night. You guys have so much amazing knowledge to share. Thank you so much for all of you joining. It's been an amazing end to a 500th episode. I hope to have many more with all of you.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And congratulations, and thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I'm sure we'll all be talking more. Yeah.
Thanks for arranging this wonderful talk.
This is wonderful. And I love the ending on getting it out there, right? Because that's what we can all do. That's all we can do is just try to keep getting the message out there. Thanks, everyone, for joining. See you next time.
Thank you. And applause to you, Joy.
Thank you.
Congratulations.